ever get that feeling?
Yeah.
Where you just want to cut through all the noise and, really understand what's going on with something.
Absolutely.
You're curious, right? You want to be in the know.
Yeah.
But wading through tons of info just feels, well, exhausting sometimes.
It really does. We're swimming in information these days, and I think the real skill is finding those key nuggets, the bits that give you a solid grasp without getting totally lost.
Exactly. And that's really what we try to do here. So today we've got a really interesting source. It's a transcript from a Master American English podcast video.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you might immediately think, okay, so this is for people learning English.
And, well, yeah, on one level it is, but it's also like a fascinating peek into how native English speakers actually talk.
Right.
It's full of that everyday vocabulary and those little clues about how we express ourselves, how we react to things.
So our mission today is to dive into this conversation, this transcript, and really pull out the key insights. We're going to look at communication skills, how vocabulary works in the real world, and even like the emotional side of our daily language.
Yeah. And what's really valuable, I think, is that you don't actually have to be studying English to get something useful out of this.
Good point.
This conversation gives us a really clear example of how people connect, how they share things, show empathy, in just normal interactions. It's a great way to look at communication itself.
Okay, great. So let's jump into the transcript then. The core conversation is about a pretty significant event, something I think would grab anyone's attention, a big fire in the city.
That's right. The two speakers, Mia and Alex, they're reacting to a news report they heard.
Mm-hmm.
And they touch on the main facts, large fire, people losing their homes, some people getting hurt.
Oh, wow.
But thankfully, and this is the really key thing, no one actually died.
Okay. That's huge. It's the kind of story that, immediately pulls you in and makes you feel something.
Definitely. And the way they discuss it, even with pretty simple language, it reveals a lot about how we process and respond to news like this.
Yeah. So maybe let's start with some of the specific vocabulary that the source highlights, and then we can see how it actually plays out in their chat.
Sounds good. What's fascinating is how these really common phrases do so much work in communication. Take, I cannot imagine.
Right.
The explanation is basically that it means something is so difficult or maybe so painful to think about that you just can't fully grasp what it must feel like.
Yeah, grasp is a good word for it. And the examples they give, like, I cannot imagine living without my family, or I cannot imagine your pain, sir.
Mm-hmm.
They really show how it's used to express, well, deep empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
It acknowledges how heavy the situation is for someone else.
Exactly. It's more than just saying, I don't understand. It's like connecting with the difficulty.
Yeah, trying to connect.
It signals that effort, even if full understanding isn't possible. Okay, then there's the word injury.
Okay.
The source defines it simply as a part of the body is hurt. Pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
But then it lists related terms like after an injury, injuries, plural, words related to causes like accidents and even types, internal injuries, multiple injuries.
Huh. It's interesting how one sort of core word branches out like that.
It is, isn't it?
It shows how vocabulary isn't just isolated words, but a whole network.
Yeah, exactly. It highlights that understanding language, even our own, isn't just about single words, but seeing how they all kind of fit together. Okay, next up. The expression, that's a relief.
Oh, yeah, that's one we all use constantly.
Right. The transcript explains it as what you say when something bad didn't happen and you feel better.
And the example is perfect, thinking you lost your phone, but then finding it. Phew.
We've all been there.
Totally. We've all felt that specific wave of relief.
It's a great example of just a short phrase that instantly communicates that whole shift in feeling.
Yeah, from like panic to, okay.
From worry to, comfort and maybe gratitude. It shows how efficiently we can signal our feelings. And finally, we have going through.
Okay, going through. This one means having a hard or difficult time.
Mm-hmm.
In the example, she was going through a sad time because her cat is sick. That really clicks. It describes like a process, right? Enduring something tough.
Yeah, enduring is a good way to put it. What's insightful here is how these, they seem like simple bits of vocabulary.
Yeah, they do.
But they let us tap into these really fundamental human experiences and connect with each other's emotions. So, okay, let's see how Mia and Alex actually use these when they talk about the fire.
Okay, so Mia's first reaction is just very direct, very heartfelt. Oh no, that's so sad.
Straight away.
It immediately sets that empathetic tone. It's just a very human response, isn't it?
Yeah.
A quick emotional nod to the bad news.
It is, and it's interesting how that short phrase, "that's so sad," works to, like, establish that social connection, signal her empathy, even before they really dig into the details.
Right.
Then, they both quickly jump to how hard it is to imagine the situation. Mia says, "I cannot imagine losing my home like that." And Alex replies, "Me neither. It must be so scary."
It's really striking. They both go straight to, I cannot imagine. Did that shared feeling, that shared inability to truly imagine it, does that kind of amplify the tragedy in their conversation?
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah.
It makes it feel even heavier.
I think you're right. That shared sentiment really underlines the gravity of the loss. It's like they're both acknowledging the immense difficulty on an emotional level.
Yeah.
Then, of course, they talk about injuries and thankfully find out no one died. And the immediate reaction.
That's a relief.
Exactly.
Which is just precisely how you'd expect someone to react.
Yes.
Right. Fits perfectly. The potential for something much worse was there.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing lives were spared brings that instant feeling, that relief.
And it doesn't stop there. They then both express gratitude for their own circumstances.
Yeah, it makes me feel thankful for what I have.
Me too. It's a natural reaction, isn't it? When you hear about others facing hardship, it often makes you look at your own situation differently.
Definitely. It's a reminder that news, even about strangers, can spark these really personal feelings like gratitude, perspective.
Mm-hmm. And then Mia brings it home with a really thoughtful point at the end. We should always be kind to others. They may be going through something hard.
Which perfectly loops back to that last phrase we discussed, going through.
It does. It's a powerful reminder, isn't it, about the invisible struggles people around us might be dealing with.
Yeah. It makes you think about how often we just don't know the full story.
Yeah.
You know, what someone else is really experiencing. So looking at this whole exchange, what are the big takeaways about communication we can pull out?
Well, firstly, I think it's super clear that even simple everyday words can carry a huge amount of emotional weight.
Totally.
And convey really significant ideas. You don't need super complex language to show empathy or concern or relief. The power's in the sincerity, right? And the shared understanding of these basic phrases.
That's so true. It's a good reminder that being a good communicator isn't always about having a massive vocabulary.
Right.
It's more about using the language you do have genuinely.
Yeah.
Meaningfully.
Secondly, the conversation just flows very naturally. Information gets shared, feelings get expressed. Common ground is found through really clear, direct language. It's kind of a testament to how effective, straightforward communication can be.
It's almost like we're hardwired to connect like this, isn't it?
Mm.
Even a short chat like this shows that human areas are doing to acknowledge and respond to each other's experiences.
Yeah, I think so. And finally, the whole interaction is really underpinned by empathy.
Yeah.
You know, consideration for others.
Definitely.
Even though Mia and Alex aren't directly affected by the fire, their immediate concern is for the people who are.
It really highlights how important it is to try and put yourself in someone else's shoes, even if you haven't been through the exact same thing. It's just core to how we connect as people. Now, for you listening, maybe take a second to think about times you've used similar phrases. You know, I cannot imagine, or that's a relief. Or maybe acknowledge that someone is going through something tough.
Or perhaps recall moments when you felt those same emotions yourself, hearing news or just in a conversation. Reflecting on that can really bring home how these small linguistic bits and pieces contribute to effective, meaningful communication every day.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it, that even in what looks like a basic language lesson on the surface, we uncover these really fundamental things about human connection and how we express ourselves.
Absolutely. It just reinforces that idea that language isn't only about grammar rules and memorizing words.
Right.
It's deeply, deeply tied to our emotions and our ability to understand and relate to each other.
So to sort of wrap up our deep dive here, we've looked at this conversation sparked by some sad news. We've unpacked key phrases, I cannot imagine, injury, that's a relief, and going through.
Mm-hmm. We saw how they're explained and, more importantly, how they're actually used in a real back and forth.
Yeah.
And we've seen how these simple words are incredibly effective. They convey empathy, relief, that shared sense of humanity.
Right.
The chat between Mia and Alex really underscores the power of just straightforward language in expressing some pretty profound human emotions and building connection.
So here's maybe something to think about as you go about your day. Consider how just actively listening to the everyday conversations around you, even just snippets, can maybe deepen your understanding. not just of the language being used, but the human experiences underneath. What other common phrases do you hear all the time, and what subtle meanings might they be carrying?
Yeah, that's a great point. And perhaps even revisiting that original Master American English podcast video could be worthwhile. Not necessarily, to get fluent in English overnight or anything, but more as an exercise in just observing these conversational dynamics, seeing the vocabulary in action in its original home. It's another chance to appreciate just how intricate communication really is.